Hello, everyone. Welcome to 24 Authors in 12 Hours. We are on that kind of downward slant right now, which is really exciting to me. When I start off in the beginning of the day, I'm drinking coffee. I am still drinking coffee. In case you wonder how this whole process works, it runs off caffeine, okay? I cannot do this in a detox. I am super, super excited with our next author, the author of Black Ashes, The Saga Begins. Gigi, who is also Greg, which I'll refer to as the rest of the time. Lemke, is that the correct way to pronounce it?
Close enough, Lemke. I mean, I've heard worse.
I was like, I'm going to mess this up. I even practice, and you're not going to do it. So I'm going to ask you to talk about what inspired Black Ashes, a little bit into your next book, which is coming out soon. In the meantime, I'm going to put your Amazon link into the comments.
So I've written other books as well, but the biggest thing that motivated me to write this book was simply because I grew up in special ed classes. I was told that I was stupid, that I wasn't going to graduate from high school, and a lot of it was in reading and writing, and I believed it for a very long time. Even after I graduated from high school, I got a master's degree in special ed and a bachelor's with psychology. It always left me feeling kind of depressed because, I struggled. And as I started teaching special ed, I realized that it's a mindset. And I wanted to show a lot of my students that, you can do hard things. So with Black Ashes, one of the biggest themes to it is that you can do hard things. In fact, the main character says it to one of her friends, and at a time when she's low, he says it back to her. So it becomes more of a motivation to demonstrate that, even if you struggle with reading and writing, you can still do it. You can do hard things. So that's the motivation really behind all my writing.
I love that you share that. And I want to harken back to two of the authors that we've had today, and one of which is G.E. Moore, the Blees, the Prince of the South Side. And his story this morning, for anyone out there, you definitely tune into that. But he really talks about a very similar kind of perspective of growing up. He looks at things from an Afrocentric perspective, and from the fact that he didn't have a lot of role models growing up Southside Chicago, and how he kind of has really used that as a platform. And, once again, in a place where people think, oh, like, you can't do it, you can't make it. And clearly he overcame that and did. And then the other one I really kind of want to highlight is the book from, I'm looking for it, Declan James Mullen, who wrote Care. And he wrote Care about somebody who is wheelchair bound, really based on his experience working in a care facility. And your message, let me tell you, Greg, I think it is so spot on. Like, this message of you can overcome adversity through, and then sharing it in a way of storytelling. So let's talk a little bit about your storytelling. And in your approach, do you map it all out? Do you kind of just wing it, or do you do some kind of combination?
So in order for me to answer that, I kind of want to take you back to a time when I actually first got my teaching license. I actually went and got it through University of Phoenix. And my wife and I had to go to a place in Arizona. And I tell this to my students all the time. I like to go from point A to point B. And my wife, she likes to go from point A to point B, but she stops off with all the flowers. I don't shop with her because of that. I cannot keep doing that. However, when I write a book, I think, okay, how does my wife get from point A to point B? And hopefully it makes sense. So I don't necessarily have, I don't write it down. I don't have an outline I follow. Typically, it kind of organically evolves. And there's been times that I'm like, I don't know if I like this. So I have to wait. I have to think it through, and I'll go back and delete it if I don't like it and stuff like that. But I think it's just a matter of knowing where you want to be at the end of the entire book, and then how you're going to get your characters there. My sons like to play D&D, and that's something that they always say, you'd be a great DM, and I'm like, no, that's not true. But it is. It's just a matter of getting your characters from point A to point B, and having them take some side roads that don't work out, so that's really what I do is I have point A, point B, and then I go from whatever is going to happen to the characters. I bring them back to point B. So that's really my process. It looks quite hectic. I've got ADHD, so my mind doesn't sit in one spot a lot.
So let's look at your characters. You have two main characters, Tina and Aaron. Let's talk
Actually,
about
Aaron is a very, very important player in this book. However, he's not a main character in the fact that we go and talk about him a lot. He ends up in a different place. But Tina is the main character, and she's got a group of friends that actually save her from a situation that she had absolutely no control over. And they take her under her wing, and they help her. Tina is everybody I can think of in the world. Everybody has had some setbacks in life. Everybody's had that moment where they are shattered and they have to pick up the pieces. And this is really what Tina has to do. She's shattered. Her life becomes something that she doesn't realize. And then moving forward, what happens to her? Why does she make those choices that she makes? So Aaron is a very important part of my book. And he comes back in the second book as well. But we leave Aaron off to the side for a little while in this book. Let him fester, but Tina is probably the most important part. Well, she is the hero of the book, but she goes on such a ride that I think a lot of us can relate to. Maybe not in the sense that it's a dystopian thing, but we can relate to struggling. We can relate to having a shattering experience, and then looking at ourselves and saying, how can we pick up the pieces, So Tina's the one that we want to really focus on. She's the one doing the hard things.
Well, let's focus on Tina, and let's talk a little bit about your world building. So how do you build this world? What are your thoughts as you're developing it, the world that Tina lives in?
Well, there's two different things that I wanted to create, two kind of different worlds that live simultaneously. So this is post-apocalyptic. So it's after World War III, where life becomes unlivable. People get diseases, and then finally this new government comes into play and tries to make them look like they are doing the best. And then all of a sudden they're conscripting teens into the armed services. Parents have an option. They can allow that to happen, or they go on the run and they hide with their kids. But if they're found, the kids have to kill the parents to show loyalty to what is called the New United Federation, or the NUF. And Tina ends up being found. Her mom goes into hiding, and she's found. But she didn't have to kill her mother. It just ends up happening. And that's what really sparks Tina's journey, is the fact that her mother passes away. And then the world that she lived in with her mom was a very protective one where she knew what to do. And all of a sudden that's taken out from under her. And then she has this, what do I do now? So as she goes along her journey, she goes into different places. She goes into a place where one person, Aaron, is preaching peace and how he wants to make sure everybody is taken care of, but behind the scenes, he's not as clean cut as he makes himself out to be. So that's where we're going right there with Tina. I don't want to give away too much, so
we won't give away too much. Let's talk about an aspect of you. So you really kind of talked about this background that you have, this kind of overcoming adversity. And a lot of times for writers, like, people are like inspired and they're like, I want to tell this story. I cannot tell you how many people have said I want to write a book. But there's a huge difference between I want to write a book and I have a book and it's published. And now you're like, I have a book, it's published, I'm going to write a second book. Tell us about this personal journey that you've been through as an author and how you've gotten to this point.
Well, I don't look it, but I'm 50 years old and I've had some health issues. And I was watching a news article or a news thing once, and Brandon Mole, who wrote the Fable Havens and stuff like that, he was on there, and he's like, he was asked what do people need to know if they want to be an author. He said, just write. And I had just had surgery on my ankle, and I couldn't walk for 6 months. So I'm like, okay, I can't do anything else. Might as well start writing. And that really is what sparked me to actually take that leap. But once you've written a book, it's not done. My first book I wrote, and I need to go back and edit so much more of that. My writing was not near as refined as it is now. When I actually published it, that was an even harder jump for me, because now I'm putting myself out there, and it's hard. It's hard to put yourself out there, and it's hard to feel like you've left a piece of you in this book, and somebody might not like it. I'm to a point now where it's like, if you don't like it, oh well, let's move on. But it does a psychological flip on you. But so my journey was really something to help myself feel like I can overcome my own issues. I hope that makes sense, because it sure doesn't sound like it.
No, I mean, you write about stories of adversity, and you're overcoming adversity, right? And I think that ability to expose yourself, especially when you're young. When you're young, I think your ego is still building. You're kind of at that point where you're like, oh my gosh, are people going to like this or not? As you get older, like you said, I think it becomes easier, because you're like, hey, you know what? I'm still alive today. I woke up, like, this is a good day. Like, I'm not expecting a whole lot.
I can get out of bed and stand up without my back giving out today.
Yeah, I mean, once you're over 50, I mean, I don't know. One of the funniest comedians talks about like how liberating it is. Like, once you hit 50, you're like, hey, I'm over on this side now. So now the goal is live every day until you don't have any more life.
Right, exactly.
And so I think that's different. And I think you hit on a really key thing for authors that I see a lot of, and I just encourage authors to really think about this, is you can't be everything to everyone. Your book was meant for an audience. And somebody told me that they didn't like something on my back cover. And I was like, if they don't like that, they're not going to like the book.
Right.
And I was like, because to me, this was like, you always got to decide, is this something I'm willing to cut? But it was like, if you don't like this, you're probably going to read this whole book and be like, I don't like the writing style. I don't like the concept. And I think such an important thing you just said, like, hey, if this isn't meant for you, it's not meant for you.
Well, and it's kind of interesting. I have many friends that'll, as I'm writing it, they can read it as I write it. And I had one friend ask me, why are you writing it the way you want, or why are you writing it the way you're writing it? And my simple answer was, because you got to remember who I'm writing it for. I'm really not writing it for an adult, although they would enjoy it. But when I looked at a book when I was younger and it was thick, I wouldn't even, that was like, no way. So my books they're not long books. I think Black Ashes is like 174 pages. So it's not that big of a book, but it's one that is still very engaging, especially for a young mind. The Embers Rising, the second book, which I'm going to plug real quick, is
coming out. This is your time. Preach it.
It's coming out September 6th, and I can't be more excited about this book. I think this book is so much. I'm excited about it. I really am. But it's a hard thing to do, and when you get it done, it's like, wow, right? So I think it's hard, and people may not like it, but it is what it is. You got to remember who you're writing it for and why. That's my big thing, is because I used to teach special ed. I did that for 18 years. So when I'm writing a book, I think, well, what are my students going to be able to get from this book? And being where they've been, like, I can understand. This is why I would read this book if I was them. I did have a couple of my students actually read it, and they were like, Mr. Lemke, you did a great job. I'm like, well, thank you. too bad you're too young not to give me a review. So, but hey, thanks, but I think it's just simple. Who are you writing it to? And that's something very important to me.
Thank you for sharing that. Do you have a website? Because I was just looking in my materials and I do not have a website for you.
I actually just barely created it. I created it with Canva. I will send you a link to it.
Yeah, we'll get your website out here later on. I definitely want to make sure that we share that later on with the audience. And so the people who are listening in the future, it is such an important thing. Have a website, get on the newsletters, find out what your author's doing. And then that way, when they're promoting their next book, because September 6th is going to be around the corner, which is super exciting.
I am so excited for this. I can't tell you how excited I am for this one. One of the big things about writing this series was I wanted to write a series because that's a different challenge than just writing a book. You've got to be able to have the overarching plot, but then you also have to have each book have their own plots, and it gets tough. So I wanted to challenge myself in writing it. So I'm really excited. I have not started the third book. The third will be the end of it all, but I had to take a break for a second and probably will start writing again in January. But this is another hard thing that I wanted to try to do. So,
and this is a good point. So when it comes to writing a book, writing's the first part, and then there's like the editing, the publishing, but the marketing the book, which you're here right now out here doing. How has that experience changed you? And what are your thoughts on the whole marketing piece?
So it's been a busy couple weeks for me. In far as the promoting part of it, I think I've married my computer, trying to get things promoted for myself and do all the maybe get a bookmark and try to do that kind of stuff. Promoting is probably harder than writing the book, and I'm not a salesman. I could not go and sell a car to somebody that just got in an accident. I couldn't do it. So selling my work is very difficult for me. But I've realized just in the last couple of days that it's not about selling it. It's more about having people view it. I want them to enjoy my writing. So I want it to get in the hands of those that would read it. So again, I'm doing a promotion on Monday and Tuesday for that you can get Black Ashes for free on an ebook, because I want people to be able to say, yeah, I like Tina. I like her determination. I like the fact that she knows that she can do hard things. So I want people to see it. So, go get your free ebook for it, because I tell you, if you read it, I think you'll enjoy it.
So, Greg, do me a favor. Send me a reminder Monday morning with the link to your ebook, and let's make sure we're sharing that and getting it out. One of the things I really promote is authors helping authors, right? I mean, this is a key thing is we love books. We love reading books. We love writing books. We love sleeping next to books. That's a lot of the principles of my book theory right now is I'm like, what would I rather have? I'm like, a book. I just want to cuddle with this book, right? That's one of the things that I love is just reading, right? And so one of the things about why I do this is it connects readers to other authors who write in a similar genre. So trying to kind of figure out the genre mashups. Like I said, if you like these books, Care is probably a book that you're going to be able to relate to. The G.E. Moore books, the Prince of the South Side. These are the kind of books that like you kind of mash up together in the genre. And it's super interesting because dystopia, post-apocalyptic, there's so much in this genre that you're looking at. And then some of the stuff, people said, oh, I don't see where that fits. And then now they're like, oh, I kind of do see where this fits. There's a lot of overcoming adversity that you have to do. And a lot of times dystopia really is about realizing things are not quite right and that there's a shiny surface and a facade. But then once you pull that facade back, it's like.
And I can tell you, the second book of my series is called Embers Rising, and that pulls a lot of the wool off people's eyes. Like, oh, this is why it was so horrible for these people to live in, and it takes them down a road that you didn't think that they would have to. So I'm really excited for it.
I think that that's important. And so I really just kind of want to highlight Black Ashes available right now, and Monday, Tuesday, those are going to be absolutely free for your Kindle downloads. And then you want to make sure that you're marking that date, September 6th, so you can get the next book. So kind of perfect timing to get book one for free, read it, and then leave that review, because that review is critical for authors.
I can't tell you how many, like, I've got 8 reviews and I want so many more. I don't even care if it's a bad review. I just want a review, rather than be good. But hey, I want people to see my book. I know not everybody's going to like it, but I want people to see what they like about it, what if they would have changed. So I did have somebody already tell me that has been reading the book as I've been writing it, that I better not go one of the ways she thinks I'm going to go, because I've hinted towards it. She's really upset about it, but we'll see what happens. So.
It's very interesting how people get married to certain aspects, and then when you do this, people freak out, and you're, as the author, you're like, I didn't think that was going to be the thing that was going to be upset people very much, right? And so you never know. And I really think it's super important to highlight that your books are more for a YA audience. Yeah. And so one of the things that's very important there, sometimes people ask about these other scenes, and you're like, dude, this is a YA audience. There's no steamy scenes in here, and there is a reason.
They do kiss, but that's the extent.
Right.
I mean, I am not a romantic person, so.
But it's got to be audience appropriate. I mean, right, these are for that kind of YA audience. This is not your shifter romance series.
Exactly.
Exactly. So I just kind of want to highlight that. That's another important aspect, is who is your audience? Because my audience should be adults. I make it very, very clear in my latest book. And I'm going to just do a little post here for my book, which is free for Kindle download. It's always on Kindle Unlimited. And it is a dystopian fiction written around the premise of data. So this is really a lot about the National Archivist has been fired, the Librarian of Congress has been fired, museum curators have been fired, and the ability to get data now, 30 years later in 2055, is super difficult. And underground networks have now formed. And the super interesting thing about it goes into not for YA is it is based on the premise that the heroine is in a brothel and serving as a prostitute. And so not for your kids. And so
maybe let's keep that to the adult, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like I said, this is not a YA novel. And they don't actually cross any lines, but it's definitely a concept for mature adults to kind of think about. And a super interesting thing on this is that the Native American Museum is actually built on what was a brothel in DC. And so it gets converted back into a brothel for the purpose of the book. And so it's a fun read. Lots of concepts. And one of the things I do, and you mentioned this, since I do want to plug this real quick, is at the end of the book, and you can read about it on my A+ content on Amazon, is I have reader's choice. So there are 4 different characters where you can decide what is going to happen to them in book 2. So it's a little bit of
that's pretty cool. That's getting your readers involved, eh?
Exactly. So I definitely want to see where readers go with this. Voting is available online. And the other thing I want to do is thank you for being on 24 Authors in 12 Hours. I want to say Greg impressed me, because Greg immediately said, okay, nothing is really free in life. Why are you doing this? What do you get out of this? And I said, the cost is your time and your network, right? And so I appreciate everybody who's tuning in. I appreciate the ability to have more people added into my newsletter. And we do have a donate button if anybody wants to donate to the cause, to make sure we're able to continue to do amazing author events. And the other thing we have is 24 Authors in 12-hour merchandise. If you want to get a coffee cup or a water bottle, these are all fun things that you can use to promote 24 Authors in 12 Hours as a virtual book fair and encourage people in reading. And with that, I'm going to turn it back over to you, Greg. Anything that we didn't cover that you wanted to talk about before we end this segment of 24 Authors in 12 Hours?
Well, the first thing I'd say is thank you for giving me this opportunity to discuss my book. I've been very nervous about it because this was the first time I've ever been approached for it. But I think I would really echo what Brandon Mole said, is just get writing, because you can't have a story without writing. And I really wish that more people would just do it. Everybody says, "Oh, I wanted to write a book." Well, then do it. It's scary, it's hard, but it's worth the while. Even when you talk about other authors, you understand where they're coming from at this point. You can see that they're putting themselves out there. And I would say just write. Just have fun with it and write. The writing's the easy part. There are other parts that are hard, but just write. Enjoy.
Thank you so much. And we're going to go ahead and close out this segment. I'll see everybody in a couple minutes for our next segment of 24 Authors in 12 Hours. Thank you so much.
Thank you.